I was in the large railway station in Toronto on my way to catch a train to Kingston when this young man came up to me and said, "Hello, Professor Christensen. I'm Daniel Wolf, and I'm going to be in your second year seminar this year."
I met Daniel in residence in 1978. Daniel was working as a desk clerk in Brockington, and we met there and had a common interest in history and music. There were two of us in this basement apartment. We had a cat at the time, and cleaning wasn't our forte.
Daniel was one of the top 5 students that I had at Queen's. In the first place, he was very intelligent. He was willing to look at things from a variety of different perspectives.
Well, Daniel and I go back a long way, actually, to when we were both at Dalhousie University. And so I appointed Daniel as the Associate Dean of Graduate Studies. And that was his first university administrative appointment. You know, well, there might be some people saying, "Oh, so you're the person to blame for putting Daniel into a university administration." I look back on that decision with great pride.
So I was involved in the search committee that reviewed a number of incredibly talented candidates for principal in 2008 and 2009, and ultimately offered the job to Daniel Wolf. In presenting his ideas for the future of Queen's, he really won over the committee. He was first of all, incredibly compelling about the institution. You know, obviously had Queen's in his DNA. He was active with the Ontario and federal government. He was extremely effective, I thought, over the years with student leadership. He worked hard on student diversity and I think accomplished a great deal there. And ultimately led the capital campaign for Queen's to a great conclusion with over $600 million raised.
I started at Queen's in 2008, and I remember right around the end of first semester Skyping with my dad and just telling him, "Oh, you know, it really it's turned great. It's everything you said it would be." And then he said to me, "That's great. By the way, there's a good chance I'll be coming to be doing the principalship over at Queen's next year," which certainly put I wouldn't say put a wrench in my experience, but it was certainly interesting to leave home and then have home follow you out. You know, every once in a while, walking around town, somebody would just stop you and say, "Hey, you know, you look a lot like Dan Wolf."
During my time at the AMS, we, together with the university, worked on reforming the non-academic misconduct system at the time. And it was a serious business, had a bunch of stakeholders on both sides. For all the jokes and the lighthearted moments with the administration, we knew we were taken seriously by them and by Daniel, and it's reflected in the amount of exposure he gave us and the amount of listening he actually did to our concerns.
So there's a family connection between Principal Wolf and my family. He and my mother, Mary Lou Flood, studied at Queen's together in the 70s. Throughout my time at Queen's, I was able to participate quite actively in student life, particularly on the sexual violence prevention and response file. As an institution, Queen's University was so fortunate to have an advocate like Principal Wolf at the helm, who was extremely committed to the cause of making Queen's a safe and equitable space for survivors. And I know his commitment to that allowed us to move that policy issue forward in a way that other institutions were not necessarily able to do in such an innovative manner.
There's a stigma about mental illness, and so Daniel was very concerned and interested in how the university might look at ways of addressing these very significant issues. And he asked me to chair a commission on mental health. It drew a lot of attention to many of the issues that our students and staff and faculty have in the arena of mental health, mental illness. And I think Daniel was both courageous and prescient in standing up and saying, "We need to address this. We need to look it square in the face. These are big issues."
Jack.org is a national charity. Over the years, we've developed a really interesting way to train and educate young people to learn how to safely and energetically and hopefully share their story about mental health. Queen's was critical in that because when we were looking to become an independent charity, we actually housed ourselves at Queen's for a full year. We were welcomed by Daniel and others on campus with open arms, and that really got things going. We have now over 200 Jack chapters across the country.
There was a Senate meeting where some very engaged students stood up and basically said, there's some things that we want to see shifted here in terms of racialized students, and the principal fielded that ball. He didn't dodge it. He set up a committee to address racism, diversity, and inclusion and launched that committee. Daniel has integrity. I think that there come moments in our lives when we need to do the right thing, but we're tempted to do the easy thing. Daniel did the right thing.
I'm sure one of the highlights of Daniel's leadership at Queen's was when Art McDonald won the Nobel Prize. But even more important is the generation of future Nobel winners that Daniel has nurtured throughout his career, and particularly at Queen's.
What I really appreciate and value about Daniel, he remembers what it was like for him when he was coming up the academic chain and how important support from mentors and supervisors is.
Our principal is not only listening to the radio, he's actually making radio. He always puts together a really amazing program each week. It's called Dark Glasses. It's we at CFRC like to call it principal jazz. So it's a pretty eclectic mix. But it really brings community together. And the principal is very much a part of that effort to continue to build the community.
I was asked to sit on the principal selection committee, and one of the things that I found in that interview that really impressed me directly was Daniel's desire to find a way to make the world a better place. It felt as though he was interested in building relationships. Then he realized that in order to improve the student life, he had to improve their relationship with the community. And so he created it was the Principal's Community Breakfast. He invited Queen's people to come and speak about things that were going on at Queen's, but also gave the community an opportunity to share their concerns. And eventually it just became a very comfortable thing.
I'm a firm believer, and I know that Daniel shares this as well, that the city and the university are both stronger and both better off when we're coordinated and we're working together. Queen's is a global institution. I was a Queen's student myself, and sometimes it can be easy to take your local relationships for granted. And I always felt that Daniel never did that. I think we've set a new bar for a new expectation of being able to work together.
Personally, having worked with him as chair of the Grant Hall Society, he and Julie and I would travel around and meet Queen's best and most loyal donors. Daniel has a real gift for connecting with people and showing gratitude. He has a very ambitious view of our university. He sees what it could become. He sees it in all its perspective, but he sees the great potential that exists here.
I'm a big believer in philanthropy for a university and for post-secondary education. And I think education is the key to developing human capital in our society. Certainly when I've considered any of my decisions to contribute and support Queen's, a big factor in that decision was the fact that Daniel was the leader of the organization. He embodied what I think is best in post-secondary educations in Canada. So the last 10 years under his stewardship has been maybe the best 10 years in the history of Queen's.
Congratulations on a job well done.
You've left the place in a far better place than it was when you found it.
You've led the university to a position of great strength.
You really made Queen's feel like home.
From the bottom of my heart, thank you.
Keep being awesome.